Hi friends, this is Meg at Chasing Retro, and I have a flip through of the 4 Anne of Green Gables journals. They are finally complete. I had a very rainy weekend where we didn't do much at all, and I buckled down and got them done. Actually just finished them about 10 minutes ago, so the lighting is bad outside. We're having really bad storms today, but I have every single light turned on in this room, so I hope it's enough light for y'all. I have named all 4 of them based on the names that Anne gave things, and so I will show you the first three. The first 3 that I will show you are reserved, so they are already spoken for, but the very last one that I show, which is a fabric covered journal, is available, and if you would like to have it, you may email me. My email address is below. If I don't hear from anyone by about 7 o'clock tonight, I'm going to list it in my shop, first come, first serve. All of these have 2 signatures, and all of them have about 17 to 18 pages per signature. So folded pages, so that would be 36 leaflets per signature. So all of them will come with several things. They will come with one of these hats that I purchased. You might have remembered I found these at Hobby Lobby, and then I decorated them with roses and daffodils and put a green ribbon around it. Now, I will leave it up to you where you would like to place this hat. I will not be placing it before shipping because I know that if I do that, it will get damaged or bent in the shipment process. So I'm going to wrap this separately in the package, and I have attached a wax thread to the hat, and so you can choose to tie it on top, or you can choose, like one of my viewers suggested, which was a great idea, to tie it to the top of the tassel and let it hang down with the tassel. I think that's a great idea, but I did not want to put it on before shipping, but I wanted to show that to you. Also in the bag for each journal is a piece of white chalk, and there is a little slate in here that I've made that you can write on and erase just like a real slate. So I'll show you that as we go along. This first one is named The Lake of Shining Waters, and I named it that because the leaves on this cover are silver, and that's the name that Anne gives to the pond in Green Gables. I'm gonna raise this up just a little bit. Let's measure this one. This one is 8 1/4 by 6 1/4. They are all 1.5 inches tall, and they are all stuffed to the brim. I thought I was going to need to do a goodie pack. I don't think I'm going to. I just put everything in. So you can take things out if you'd like, if you don't like them this full. But I had more than enough ephemera. I had just a few pieces left over that I decided to save for other projects that weren't Anne specific. Each one has a tassel that corresponds with the colors on the cover. So this one has a variety of greens and browns and a little bit of gold and white. And 3 of the 4 are not tied with a permanent tie. They're tied with just a sari silk ribbon that's tied around, and then I have secured something on top of each one. This is a clip-on earring, but we're going to pretend like it's the pin that Marilla wears. So all you do to get it open is just lift that off, and then you can untie this. I wanted to make these seem a little more homespun feeling, so that's why I just kind of did this, like maybe this was a scrap of ribbon that Anne were to find in the scrap bin that she wrapped around her book. All of them have a calico or some sort of floral fabric on the spine, and they all have beads that I've put on the bottoms of the wax thread that come out between the signatures. All right, so here we have a little fabric cluster with a bulb pin and some buttons and some tatting. I tried to include some actual vintage tatting in all of them. And we have a little page from a very old book about Bible verses. It's very pretty, it's gold inked. And then here is a picture from A lot of the real pictures that you'll see are from a book that I got about the 1985 mini-series with Megan Follows and Colleen Dewhurst. So that's what this is a still from. I used several other books. Some of them were sent to me in Happy Meal, thank you. I also used a child's reader from Grosset and Dunlap. I used a couple of cookbooks, and I think I used 3 different versions of the actual text to sort of cut and paste some quotes. Here is a wallpaper pocket with some crocheted trim that I sewed along the top, and I used my new tiny attacher that someone gifted to me to attach a watercolor hat that I painted myself. And then here is a little bit of scrapbook paper. I think it looks like wallpaper, and I attached a cameo, maybe this is Cordelia, and some lace, some vintage lace at the top. And here's an actual photograph of Lucy Maud Montgomery and some more vintage lace on the edge. Very pretty lace. I used a lot of my old textiles in these. Here's a belly band, and then tucked in here is a handwritten recipe for apple pie. And then I think in all of them, maybe minus one, I included it's from a book called 1001 Things to Write About. And since Anne loved to read and write, I thought it would be fun to put a little writing prompt page in there for y'all. Here is a map of Canada from a vintage atlas. Here's some more vintage trim, and then on a bulb pin I have a little teapot. There's a cluster. And then pinned to this page, I have a leaf that I have laminated. I have a reading list, which Anne would have definitely utilized. And I have a picture from, a page rather, from a book called Edwardian Holiday. And the pictures just lended itself to the time period that Anne lived. This is an ideals page, by the way. I punched this brown paper, and then I put a little sticker at the bottom. This is one of the oldest things in this journal. This is a ledger page that someone sent to me from, I believe it's 1857. So it predates Anne a little bit, but it just is so cool, and I have wanted to use it for so long. So here's some deli paper and a fern sticker. I don't know if y'all can hear that rain, but it's roaring right now. Here's a reader with a picture of an apple tree in blossom. My husband actually did this. We watercolored together one night after dinner, and he asked what he could draw, and I told him to draw a picture of Anne and Diana turned around, and he did that, and then I attached the little bow. Here is Gilbert and Anne, and here is just a little page of a picture of some lace curtains, and here's a quilt, and I sewed a quilt square at the top. Here's some vintage floral trim, and then another still from the mini series. I didn't want to cover up the back, so it's just a page that you can do whatever you'd like with. And this is from a book about Johnny Appleseed, but look at the way the sun rays are coming in on that apple tree. I did put some fall papers in these because Anne talks about how much she loves fall. This is a flip journaling spot, and then we have a tag that I created. Of course, Diana was not this grown up when she drank that, quote, tea, but I thought it was a lovely image nonetheless. Here's just a piece of green paper, and this is a paint chip from a paint sample that I got from England. I requested it from overseas. And they just look like things that if Anne were to name paint colors, this is what she would name them, or the way she would describe them. And I just thought, you know what? I've held on to this for a long time, and this just looks like something Anne would put her stamp of approval on. So this is a book about how to make Shaker furniture. This is another book page image, and I've put a quote here. That's when they made their little friendship pact. And here's just a little postcard. And then here's an image from the book. And that's when she brought the slate down on Gilbert's head for calling her carrots. She mentioned some literature in these books, and so there are some pages in here of some of the authors that she talked about reading. And this is Ivanhoe. A little fabric tab. I had a little die cut of a fence, and I just couched some fiber trim to be mossy grass. This is the hat that she adorned for Sunday school. And here she is having tea. This is an apple that I watercolored. This is a little clothespin, and then this is when she is yelling, I believe, at Rachel Lynde. And here are a couple of school papers, the school book pages rather. This is a reader, and this is adding fractions from some very old school books that I had. This is the center spread, and she always imagined what it would be like to write with a quill pen. It was very romantic. So I had some handwriting paper that I tore and then put a little bottle of ink. I don't know that it's ink, but we'll pretend that it is. And here's Marilla and Anne. Here's Anne walking on the roof, and this is a flip tag. A tea party in the woods. And this is from a Victorian weddings book, but I thought that it looked like something that Aunt Josephine may have done, or maybe when Anne went to the poetry recitation at the hotel, maybe they had a little appetizers area that was very elegant and formal. This is some vintage gift wrap. This is a lacing card someone gave me, and it was perfect for these. Here is a picture of this is actually from a book about Ireland, but oh my goodness, it looks like Green Gables, so I put it in here. And then a recipe from one of the cookbooks for chocolate caramels. It would be really cool if someone who ended up with these journals made some of these recipes. Here's a picture from the book about October. And this just looks like a room in the Cuthbert home. There's some little quilt squares sewn down. This was from a children's reader, and it was not Anne, but I thought it looked like her, so I glued her there. Someone gave me an altered paper clip, and I put a little hat on it. Here is a jam label, and here is a page from a very old newspaper. Portion of a page, I should say. Someone gifted this to me in Happy Mail as well. It's a handmade triple pocket, super cool. And there's actually apple blossoms on there. And then we have some of Marilla's pickled items, and then a page from an encyclopedia. There's one of these in each book. It's just an illustration that I got out of a book with a blank back, and I used photo corners to attach it. There are fabric flips in each one that is made from a vintage, very vintage quilt topper that I found at an antique store. Here's a little silhouette of Anne. I made it into a little cameo card. And this is some vintage wallpaper. Some green satin ribbon. Here's a watercolor of some books that I did. I just washi taped this little die cut here. Another image from one of the books. This is some Tim Holtz paper. You may recognize it. And this is another image from the Megan Follows mini-series. And then here is the slate. So I used blackboard paint on some black construction paper, and then I glued it to cardstock. Sorry, not cardstock, chipboard. And then I used some wood grain paper to make a frame. So I tested it, it works. You can use chalk on here to write carrots or whatever you like, and then wipe it clean. I cannot take credit for that idea. I saw a couple of other people who made Anne journals who did that, and I was like, I have to do this. A corner tuck with a card, a vintage postcard from Nova Scotia, and a stationery page folded in half. Here is a window. I have it taped shut just so it won't get bent, but you can untape it and it opens. You can journal inside. And then we have a greeting card and an image of Anne imagining herself as an older, more refined Victorian lady. Cordelia, I guess. This is a little light. I popped it on with a 3D sticker. So I told you guys that my dad was going to do a pen and ink of Green Gables. This is it. And this is a digital print of it. Each journal will have this inside. And here is a book plate with cats. Shakespeare page with some annotations by the original author. This is a blossoming fruit tree that I watercolored. This is another page of how to build furniture. I forgot to put something in here. I'll go back and add something in that lace pocket. Each journal will have an English rose black tea bag. Another image. This is when Diana came home drunk. If you haven't read Anne, you're probably like, what? You're going to want to read Anne if you have not. Here is another image from one of the cookbooks and a vintage coaster. This is from my book of found colors in nature. I just fussy cut some birds here. Mini pocket page with a vintage playing card. A little picture of Matthew. A little Tim Holtz lady, Friends Forever, and I made little tiny books for teeny tiny journaling. Oh, this is a very old needlework magazine from the early 20s. Here are some very, very old buttons on a card. And what I imagine Anne's room looked like. I believe this image is from Laura Ashley book. Here's a page from I think it's called Children's Bookshelf. This is packing paper, and I put a teapot on here. This is from a yearbook that I was gifted from the early 1920s. Beautiful, almost pulpy type paper. Here is a little charm of a carrot on that eyelet. I just put some notebook paper down and sewed around it and put a little button graphic. Sewing page. An ideals page is the center of this signature with a apple tree. A full page fabric pocket. A little journaling card. Anne and Matthew. And this is a birthday book page with October. This is a watercolor dandelion that I painted. Fabric pocket, another image from a book, another image from one of the books, and another image from a book. I sewed a button to the corner of that as well. I have this quilted A and a little picture of Anne. Two more journaling cards. A little flip pad with some papers. A little cluster here and a journaling card showing the station. This is from one of the tourist guides that I requested from Prince Edward Island. This is one of the envelopes that I wrote from Shirley to Diana. And then we have a couple of journaling cards. Here's a quote from one of the cookbooks that I have. Double pocket. I didn't put anything in the bottom. Triple pocket. I did these too fast, I think. This is Marilla, and I don't remember. This might be when she told her she has to apologize to Rachel. Little tag. This is I think that's a statue of Anne Montgomery in Canada. And then this is another image from one of the craft books that I have. And here is a horse and carriage. I'll add something to that as well. And that is it. That is the first one, the Lake of Shining Waters. Next, we have the White Way of Delight, which Anne named the Walkway of the Grove of Apple Trees. She renamed it a more beautiful name. This is a cameo of Anne on the front with a frame. And then I have this. Someone has gifted me this altered paper clip, so I just kind of tucked it here onto this bow. And then I put a little paper and fabric flower at the bottom of the frame. I have this fabric right here that I put on the spine, and this is probably my favorite tassel. I just love the red, green, and white together. So this one is White Way of Delight, and it measures 7.5, 5 1/4. It's a Reader's Digest, and it's also 1.5 inch spine. I probably should have done these 2 inches, but when I started, I did not know I had as much ephemera as I have. Another picture of Anne and Diana. My dad's drawing, and a Megan Follows image. A pocket with a bulb pen and some more tatting. And then we have a gift wrap tag, a picture of what Anne's room might have looked like, and an image from the book, the quote. A belly band with a window here with some lace curtains, and then a recipe for coconut macaroons and Maritime ginger snaps. And I just realized that the baking instructions is not included. Oh well. Well, it's $3.75. It's probably 10 minutes if it's like most cookies. And this is a picture of a lighthouse, and I put some vintage trim. Here is one of the furniture instruction pattern books. Another picture from the children's book. Another one of those tags with a cameo. Yearbook page. I watercolored this lighthouse, and I made a little fabric cluster. Here's the English rose tea bag and a little journaling card. Clipped here, I have a journaling card about friendship and Marilla and Anne with a quote. And here's the little carrot charm on this one. A paper cluster with a rub-on dandelion. Shakespeare page. Some gingham ribbon. Watercolor apple. This is a Salter page that I spray painted some watercolor onto. Not spray painted, splattered. Ivanhoe again. Another little fence with the mossy grass. This is coffee dyed paper. Here's a handwritten recipe for pickles. And a writing prompt page. And a Canadian stamp. I think I need to turn this around. Very vintage. an image from one of the books. I think this is Anne surveying the dress she'd been given to wear. A wallpaper side pocket. This is the examination at Queens, for Queens maybe. And this is some vintage trim that I had on this path. That was from one of the cookbooks. I guess that's the White Way of Delight. Canadian encyclopedia page, a little bicycle sticker, more images from the book. I hear a cricket outside. It's so dark here, the crickets are confused. Here is Anne daring Josie to walk on the fence. Here's a tag. Here's the slate. Little girl with apples and a piece of that vintage newspaper. And this one also has beads. I didn't show you that. I thought this one looked like an apple. This is when Gilbert rescues Anne, and I put this stuff around it to look like pond scum. And then Marilla doesn't look too happy there. A journaling tag. And this is when they got to the party. And she had the dress with puff sleeves. One of the things I was going to put in was a tag with some blue gift wrap from Hobby Lobby. You guys might remember that I mentioned that. Well, I ended up not, because I felt like the color, it just didn't go with the rest of the journal. So I do have these puff sleeve dresses that I found that I alcohol inked dyed blue. So I will put one of these in each of the journals. Here's a very old, I don't know what it is. I don't think it's a postcard. It's just a little card. And then some more vintage schoolbook pages. A little set of letters as a tuck spot with a journaling card. Another one of those Edwardian holiday pages and a green page. This is actually a flyleaf page from one of the books. Here is a belly band. There's Green Gables. This is the actual site that you can visit. And here is another one of those paint chips with the names that Anne probably would have loved. Water pump. A little cluster here. Here's a wax seal with apple blossoms on it. I think this was the last scene at the end of the Green Gables miniseries. They ended up doing Avonlea as well, and I loved that one also. Here is the watercolor dandelion. Here's a clip with a very old button card and a jam label. And a quote. Here's the envelope. It flips out. Two more journaling cards. Green Gables and Rachel looking out her window for neighborhood happenings. A train pocket. Here is Anne trying to get the water out of her sinking boat. And this is just an image from one of the Victorian books that I had. This flips up and we have a playing card and a cookbook image. Here's a tuck spot with Anne and Diana, and they're eating ice cream, so I'll put this quote behind them. And here's a dictionary page. Double pocket. Here's Anne clinging onto the bridge, and Gilbert. I don't know what this is either. It looks like it's been taken out of a scrapbook. Maybe a calling card, and then another apple image from the one of the children's readers. Shaker furniture page, parchment, a cluster with some jam, vintage wallpaper card, put some lace on this one, a mirror, a hem page, fabric pocket. Here is Anne and Diana having tea, and the curtain image. Coaster, a postcard, and a journaling card with the Lake of Shining Waters, or a brook. I think that's the brook, which I don't know that's the same as the Lake of Shining Waters. Here's the vintage ledger. A teapot charm on this one, very heavy. A quote. Quilt squares, ideals page as the center. Laminated leaf. And a Nova Scotia postcard. There's Anne. Another image that looks like maybe Aunt Josephine's. There's the Lake of Shining Waters. Marilla's apron. The quilt topper. The books, and I put my weekend is all booked. Embroidery book page. A book plate. A dual-sided image, and Rachel Lind. This page comes out for journaling. This is about a vintage schoolroom. Journaling card. This is actually the hotel that was used as the White Sands Hotel in the miniseries. Here's Anne's hat that I watercolored. Something that's catching. There we go. Little mini pockets. I've got a little tag and another dual-sided image and a little teeny tiny book. All right, this was the White Way of Delight. I need to find a spot for this. There we go. Next, we have Violet Vale. This is what she named, I think it was a field of violets that she saw. And here's a hat and chalk for this one. This one has the same tie, and it has this earring. And the tassel has a lot of greens, a little bit of yellow, the colors of the front of the book. I did put book corners on this one, and then the beads are the same colors as the book. The back is very pretty on this one also. Oh, measurements. 9 1/4, 6 1/2. This was by far the tallest one of the bunch. Let's tuck this dress in here. So we have a tag and the gift wrap tag, another tag, playing card, and then a little strawberry label and Marilla at the bottom. And here is Marilla and Anne doing some sewing, and a little cluster with some buttons. This is from a cookbook page. Doesn't this look just like Anne's house? I thought that was really cool. and the Edwardian book. Green Gables with Anne. Raspberry Cordial. And a writing prompts page. Embroidery book. Quote. And setting the table. Some gray lace and a little sugar pot. Postcard. Marilla tucking Anne in. Oh, and another recipe page for cider. Another fence with a mossy grass. A belly band with the jam jar. The cameo. Train station. And this is a piece of ephemera, a canceled check from Canada. Pretty much the only thing I had from Canada other than the visitor's guide. Woodworking book. This is a sticker of a lady from that time period. She had red hair. Recipe page about canning. A cluster. Shakespeare, all's well that ends well. Here's one of those removable pages. Ideals page. Some dye paper, eco dye paper. I've received this in Happy Mail. The color finding book page. This beautiful dress, silk dress from Victorian era, and very old buttons. I don't know what they're made of. They're very cold, so they're probably porcelain or glass. Don't forget to follow your dreams. A leaf, an October birthday page, a reading list, and a stationery page. Now it's sunshining while it's pouring rain, so I guarantee you there's a rainbow outside my house. What a weird weather day we're having. It was black as night a second ago. Ideals, look at the center. Oh my word. Oh, did I show the beads for this? Yes, I did. Pink and green. Peach and green. Flip pad, paint chip, journaling card. Oops, sorry, this is a tall one. Canadian stamp, parchment envelope. There she is at the station, her first glimpse of Matthew and his of her. And here it is, where she asked him, supposing you're Matthew. Quilt squares, quilt triangles rather. The image of Diana and Anne. This is from the mini-series. Journaling card. It's from the book about the mini-series. Mini pockets. We have a little handwritten recipe on vintage requisition slip for slapjacks. Anne with Matthew, so sad. Sad scene. Little photo, Matt and Marilla in the little tiny book. Full page fabric pocket, some canning jars, a couple of journaling pages, and Marilla and Rachel Lynn's aghast face. Nothing like it. Dictionary page, a lighthouse, and a crinoline slip. Watercolor books. I did this in watercolor and made a belly band out of it. A vintage postcard, an Apple book page card, and this kind of looked like a film strip. I figured maybe it could be a bookmark maybe. When she hits Gilbert on the head. Jam label, sewing machine. A little mirror that I used a 3D pop out sticker with. This is my dad's drawing. A teapot die cut and a book plate. Double pocket. This is the hat that I painted, and I just put this little lace under it, and it ended up looking like a skirt. So that's the picnic, I believe. That's Aunt Josephine. Cute little tag. Journaling card and a tag. Map page, some pink ribbon, handkerchiefs, tea bag. That's her, I don't know if the book had this or not, I don't remember, but in the miniseries she had an invisible friend named Katie, and she would talk to her in the mirror. Fabric cluster, water pump, an image with a quote, newspaper page, another image with a quote, a pocket with a lacing card, a journaling card, and another journaling card of maybe Aunt Josephine's house. This was a very large cutout, and I made a tuck spot out of it with Green Gables and a snowy scene. Here's a quote. She was thinking about the picnic while she shelled peas. This is texture paste. The White Way of Delight with Matthew, and this is her at the very beginning of the miniseries. She was in the woods quoting some literature, and she was supposed to be running an errand. Here is a slate, some school book pages, and a journaling card. Some writing on this book page. There's Anne from behind, and a journaling spot with a little sticker. Watercolor. I ended up doing double lace right here, peach and green. And here's the little carrot. Journaling cards. A little rose. Here's a piece of that quilt. A stencil here. A wax seal. Here's Mr. Phillips, I think it is. This is when she got sent to her room. Coaster. Watercolor apple. Another Anne cameo card. Green Gables and vintage wallpaper card. This was Violet Veil. And the last one is available. Here's the hat for this one. Here she is. This one is named Willowmere, which is another one of Anne's original names. Tassel with the colors. This is from one of the books. I put this trim around it, and this is the brooch for the cover of this one. This one has a sewn-in closure. It's a fabric-covered box with a plush layer in between. This one is not removable. This tassel is not removable like the others, and it measures 7 5/8 by 5 5/8. here we have a wallpaper pocket with a vellum window. This is from a gift book. A card about tea. A corner pocket with a journaling card. There's Anne and her friends. And a vintage postcard of Nova Scotia. A little pop-up image on the side pocket, an Anne cameo card. It's from a very old magazine, the Advertiser, Home Magazine Advertiser. Shaker furniture page. There's Anne. There's the station, Bright River, I think it is. This is when she's going to apologize. Here is the paint chip and the cameo tag. This one has a little teapot charm. All's well that ends well, with some annotations. The very old yearbook page. Here they are at the picnic. The lace paper. And this look, oops, I think this is actually in Prince Edward Island. It looked like the bridge that is in the book, where they have a lot of their meaningful talks. Canada stamp, a quote. Anne and Matthew, that's when he bought her the dress. There's Green Gables. Ideals page, watercolor apple, Ivanhoe. Here's the quilt topper. Oh, this has tatting along the top as well. Best friends, and I have a picture of them with a fabric cluster behind them. Gift wrap tag, book page, and a newspaper page. Wallpaper pocket, wallpaper card. And this is some stationery. It's lovely ivory embossed stationery. This is when he's dancing with Josie, but he spots Anne across the room. Playing card and a recipe page. Quilt triangles. Watercolor dandelion. Another image. This is when Marilla finds her brooch on the shawl. A little sticker of a chair. Clipped here we have some vintage buttons. These are very, very old. They're glass. Anne and Diana. Fabric cluster with a little key. Here's the best friend pair. Green Gables in the snow. October birthday page. This is one of my watercolors as well. I only did one of these. Here's Marilla coming to her, telling her she found the pen. Fabric pocket. And in here we have a tag with the yellow chair, the chair with the clothes thrown over it. Lazy Wife Pickles recipe and a journaling card. Watercolor hats. Here's my dad's drawing. Jam label. Image from the book. Here's the slate and the Edwardian holiday page. This pocket has some tatting and some buttons attached with a heart doily. Journaling card, book page, card, and dictionary. fabric pocket with some school book pages and 2 journaling cards. Needlepoint book page, a bag with some black tea, and 2 more journaling cards. Two more tags. This is the cover of the children's reader. Fabric tag, little bedroom image. I think this might be Anne's room at Green Gables in PEI. Here is the watercolor tree again, and I put some moss at the bottom. And doing dishes. Vintage ledger, antique ledger actually. An altered paper clip. Here's Anne about to explode at Rachel Lynde. Here's the raspberry cordial. And a little journaling page. This comes out for journaling. This is Gilbert rescuing Anne. Keeps popping out on the other side. Here's the carrot charm. Hymn book page. This is some dye paper in a beautiful celery green. Ideals page is the center. And the beads on here have blue and red, gold and green. Watercolor books. Crochet trim. Here's the writing prompt page and vintage coaster. Belly band. The envelope. Anne with a puff sleeve dress and some apples. Some jam. 3 more cards from the mini-series. This is when she helped save Diana's little sister. Minnie May, I think her name is, which is so cute. Little tiny book. A vintage yo-yo. Laminated leaf. 2 tags. And taking care of a child before she came to Green Gables. And a covered bridge. All right, this one is the last one, and it's Willowmere, and it will be available if I don't hear from someone tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.